If you're getting into Arduino, then it's not going to be long before you need to use a solderless breadboard. Solderless breadboards help you connect different electronic components and modules without having to pull out a soldering iron. The most important thing you're going to learn in this video is how to use a solderless breadboard with Arduino. And if that's all you need to know, watch for the next couple minutes and you're going to know more about solderless breadboards than 99% of humanity. But for those nerds out there, I'm also going to talk about some solderless breadboard details that you might find interesting and handy if you plan to use solderless breadboards a lot. Throughout this entire video, I'll be making some recommendations about my favorite tools that you can use alongside of your solderless breadboard. Finally, I'm going to show you a handy little trick that you can use a breadboard for that actually does include soldering. Let's go. All right, so here is the quintessential solderless breadboard. Again, a solderless breadboard is a tool, and you use it to assemble a circuit without having to solder. It's way less commitment than soldering. It's kind of like a first date. You just want to get to know the circuit a little bit. So how do you use these things properly? That is, how do you assemble a circuit on a solderless breadboard? So let's orient ourselves with this breadboard and discuss how it's done. There's an inner section, and then there's two outer sections. The inner part of the breadboard is composed of 10 columns and around 60 rows depending on the size of the breadboard. The 10 columns are divided into two sets of 5 and they're separated by this little indented channel. Often you'll find the columns are labeled A through J and then the rows are numbered periodically. Honestly, I think it looks like the Pocket Edition of the game Battleship. E5, you sunk my 555 timer. Now the key thing that will unlock your understanding of how to use a breadboard is to know what is electrically connected. Now on this intersection here of the breadboard, it's the short rows that make electrical connections between different components. So if I connect two things in the same row, they'll be electrically connected. It's almost as if you'd soldered them. Now the rows on either side of the channel are not electrically connected. So if I tried to connect something to row 5 on the left side of the channel and then something to row 5 on the other side of the channel, these two components would not be electrically connected. So think of each row as its own independent, electrically connected little world. Now I'm going to demonstrate building a couple circuits on a breadboard, but first I want to talk about these outer rows on your solderless breadboard. The outer rows are sometimes called buses, but I think more often the term that folks use is the power and ground rails. Often you'll see them color-coded and marked with a plus and minus sign. Plus side is usually red, and it's meant to be used for power connections, like the 5 volts from your Arduino or the 3.3 volts from maybe an ESP32. And this would be the power rail. The minus side is usually colored blue or black, and it's meant to be used for ground connections. And that would be called the ground rail. The typical breadboard will have 2 power and 2 ground rails on either side of the board. Now each rail is electrically connected from top to bottom. That means if I connect something all the way up at the top and then something all the way at the bottom, they're going to be electrically connected. However, there are some breadboards out there made by evil companies whose sole goal in life is to confuse small minds like mine. And these companies make an electrical gap halfway between each rail on the breadboard. And that gap may be indicated by a break in the color coding of the rail. In all seriousness, this can be handy if you have 2 different voltages. Maybe you're running 5 volts on one side and 3.3 on the other, but more often than not, it just confuses the crud out of me. But it is definitely important to keep an eye out for that. But if you ever have something wired up in your breadboard and you're scratching your head why something's not getting power or ground or something, you'll want to check the continuity on the power rails of your breadboard. Now, it's important to note that the rails on either side of the breadboard are electrically independent. So the power rail on the left side is not connected to the power rail on the right side, and the same is true for the ground rails. So how does a breadboard actually make these electrical connections? Well, it's literally just a little metal clip on the bottom that spans each row, and it holds your electrical component in place. So now what I'm going to do is demo building a couple small circuits using an Arduino Uno R3 and some common electrical components. I'm going to use Tinkercad to demonstrate this just because it's a little cleaner, I think, and easier for you to see. All right, so here I am in Tinkercad, and we have got a simulation of a breadboard here. Again, we've got columns A through J, and then all these different rows. Then we've got our power rails here. And what I'm going to do is add an Arduino to this picture here. And what I want to do is add an LED circuit off of pin 13. That's a common circuit that you'll make when you're first learning how to use Arduino. So let me do that. So what I did was connect digital pin 13 on the Arduino. Using a wire, I connected it to rail 3 here on the breadboard. And then I connected an LED to my breadboard as well. And I've got the anode connected to rail 3. So now this leg of my LED is electrically connected through this wire to pin 13. Then what I did is I connected the other leg of the LED to row 4 on the breadboard, and my resistor, one side of it, to row 4 as well. So can you see that now this leg of the LED and this lead on the resistor are connected electrically? And then finally, the other side of the resistor I connected to row 8, and I also connected a wire there onto row 8 to the ground voltage on my Arduino board. Now I could have used any one of these grounds on the Arduino. I just, used this one to make the wires kind of clear. So I've built a complete circuit here with my Arduino and the breadboard. So if you understand again that the rows are what are electrically connected, you can see how we're making all these connections. Now in Tinkercad, which is the simulator I'm using, we can also simulate the circuit. So I've just got it to do some blinking, and we can see our LED is blinking. Okay, so that's kind of fun. All right, so let's go ahead. What if we add a button to this? Maybe I want to press a button and that would turn on the LED. So let me do that. Okay, so I've added a button to this breadboard circuit. And you've also noticed that I'm now taking advantage of the ground rail on the left side of the breadboard. So again, this entire rail is electrically connected. So what I did is I just connected the ground from the Arduino to the ground rail on this breadboard. And so this entire row now, if I connect anything to it, it will connect it to ground. And what I did is I moved the LED circuit, I connected this to this ground rail, and then one side of the button I connected to the ground rail. The other side of the button I connected to pin 2. Now you'll notice, I'm using different color wires here. Generally speaking, and this is just a convention. It just doesn't matter what colors you use, as long as you know what they are. If you're probably going to be working with the circuit the most. Generally, you'll use like a black for the ground. That's a pretty common thing. Or I don't know, I've seen white used for ground. And then if you're going to use a power line, you might try to use red. And then for the different signal lines, you can use whatever color you want. Me, I like to use colors that kind of stand out, that contrast with one another. Now I also wrote a little code for this so that when we press the button, the LED turns on, and I'm just running the simulation, so it's kind of fun. You can actually interact with it. Now if you're getting into using Arduino and programming it and want to learn more about that, make sure to check out our training program at programmingelectronics.com. Now I want to show you one more thing on a breadboard that's pretty common. You'll see this quite a lot. Is what people will do is they will tie the 2 power rails together and the 2 ground rails together. So let me do that and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So what I've done here is connected the 5-volt pin on the Arduino and connected it to the red power rail here. And then I make a line, a wire connection over to the other side of the breadboard. So now this side is 5 volts, this entire power rail is 5 volts, and this entire power rail is 5 volts. I've done the same thing with ground. So again, we had this one established as the ground, but now I take it over to the right side and I connect this one to the ground. So you can see on my button, instead of having it connected to ground on this side, I connected it to the ground on this side. Now this can be really handy if, say, you've got a smaller form factor Arduino board or ESP32 that you're developing with that fits on the breadboard. So doing this isn't some requirement or anything like that. It can just be really handy. I find it super handy when I'm developing a circuit that has a smaller form factor Arduino board on the breadboard itself, like a Nano, or maybe I'm working with an ESP32 development board. I do like to connect the grounds on either side and the powers on either side. I find it really effective. Now, when you're placing wires and components on a simulator, it sure looks really easy, doesn't it? When you're using an actual breadboard, it's also pretty easy, but sometimes the contacts, like the actual holes, sometimes it can be difficult to fit a different electrical lead into that hole. I personally find it really helpful to use a pair of needle nose pliers to place components, jumper wires, and stuff like that. I'll make sure to link in the description to all the stuff that I find really useful when I'm breadboarding. So what's the deal with the channel down the center of the breadboard? It's like a little electronic Moses wanted to part the breadboard. Well, here's the deal. That channel is designed to help you place a certain type of integrated circuit package. So what exactly is an integrated circuit package anyway? Well, it's just a form factor for integrated circuits. Like, you know, when you buy jeans, they've got slim fit, straight legged, relaxed fit, like a bunch of different stuff. The shape of the jeans is different for different types of jeans you buy, but the size might still be the same, right? Well, it's the same deal for integrated circuits. The same integrated circuit will come in several different packages. Now, on a solderless breadboard, the spacing of the holes is designed to accept the spacing of pins on a DIP integrated circuit, which is 0.25 millimeters or 100 thou for those machinists out there. And that spacing is called the lead pitch. Feel free to forget that right now. It's perfectly okay. Anyway, that channel down the middle is just the right size so that it can accommodate a very common DIP form factor width. And they even sell these tools that help you insert and extract those DIP ICs into your breadboard so that you don't bend the pins, because sometimes those pins are really easy to bend. Now, often with a solderless breadboard, you're going to take an electrical component, like maybe an LED, and you'll place it into the breadboard, or maybe like a small form factor Arduino, right? Like an Arduino Nano, you'll place it right into the breadboard. But you also need wires to connect components together or to connect pins from your, say, Arduino Uno to the breadboard. So in order to do this, you need wire, and there's a ton of different options out there for you. One of those options is just to buy coils of solid core wire. And the gauge you want to get is around 22, like AWG, American wire gauge. Now, I've also used 18 gauge wire for a nice sturdy connection on the breadboard, but maybe it's a little thick and it might wear out the breadboard clips a little bit quicker. And when I say solid core wire, I mean a solid piece of copper wire, not a stranded wire. Do not try to connect stranded wire to a breadboard. It'd be like using cooked spaghetti to tie your shoelaces. It's probably not going to go too well. Like I mentioned, they sell spools of this kind of wire in different colors that you can buy, and then you'll have to strip the plastic insulation off of each end so that it can fit into the breadboard. And they sell tools to do that as well. Now, they also sell pre-cut wires designed specifically to be used for breadboards. They come in multiple different colors, different lengths. They're really handy, and that way you don't have to do any of the cutting and stripping. It's already been done for you. And then finally, I just want to mention jumper wires, which if you're working with Arduino, you have undoubtedly seen these. They're actually super flexible wires, and on either end, they either have a male or female header pin attached to them. These are great for making like quick connections. I use them all the time, and it's handy to have a variation of like male-male, male-to-female, and female-to-female jumper combinations. So if you can get a batch like that, it's great. And to be honest, all of those wire options I just mentioned above, the roll your own solid core wire, the pre-cut wires, and those jumper wires, I use all of them interchangeably. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend one over the other. Now, breadboards come in several different sizes. You've got the standard size, which we've been talking about so far, but they also have a half size and a mini size. Across all these breadboards though, the electrical connection principle remains the same. Again, this is key. The inner rows are electrically connected, and on the outer rails, each one of those rails is electrically connected. But notice that a mini size breadboard does not have the power and ground rails on the outside, just the inner rows there. Now, most often, breadboards will have a crappy piece of adhesive on the back that can be exposed by removing a thin plastic film. What I actually recommend doing is pretending you're a grandma from the 1970s and keeping the plastic cover over top of that adhesive. Unless, of course, you've got a place you want to mount your breadboard to. You might notice that many breadboards have little nibs and slots on either side. And what these are for is for joining multiple breadboards together, which you might need to do if your circuit starts an urban sprawl. Now keep in mind, when you join these together, different breadboards, it doesn't electrically connect the boards together in any way whatsoever. But what it does do is create more slots for you to build your circuit. Some companies sell large breadboards that are just smaller breadboards all tied together just for this reason. You'll also find that some breadboards come mounted on a metal plate. They'll have some plastic doodads on them, and they'll also have some rubber feet at the bottom, which are nice for keeping your breadboard level. The little plastic doodads, those are called binding posts, and they can be really handy if you have a desktop power supply that you plan to use as a power source for your circuits. It doesn't have to be a desktop power supply. You can also, hook up power from a battery to those posts, but the binding posts have a plastic dial that is threaded. And if you turn that post all the way counterclockwise, it reveals a small hole in the binding post. And what you can do is place a hookup wire in there, or one of the solid core wires, and then you thread it back down, you tighten it down, and then you place that wire into the power rail or ground rail on your breadboard. And the top of the binding post accepts a common connector called a banana clip, and often benchtop power supplies will have these kinds of clips, and so you can just hook power in and hook ground in super easy. So if you've watched this video so far, you know more about solderless breadboards than 99.6% of the human beings who have ever lived. Good for you. But I want to show you one last little use of breadboards that I find super handy, and I do it all the time. Often, you'll buy a development board from a retailer only to realize that when it arrives, you're responsible for soldering on the header pins. Well, what you can do is place those header pins onto your solderless breadboard, then place the development board on top of them. What this does is makes a great level and stable surface for you to do your soldering on. You just need to be careful not to get the soldering joint too hot, or you could melt the breadboard. If you're just getting into Arduino, the next video you should watch is this one right here. It's going to give you an amazing introduction in how to use the integrated development environment for Arduino. There's a couple different ones. It'll talk about different ones you can use. It's going to get you up to speed fast. Definitely worth watching.